Javelins, freelancers, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of AnthemCast. I am one of your hosts, Ogaz. I'm going solo today, sorry to say. We're not going live on the Twitch, but we're just going to record locally. Binary is a little bit engaged with some activities, and I thought I'd still run the show today because we wanted to still have some conversations. There's been some updates, some information, and some fantastic stuff. I hope you have all been exceptionally well. It's been a good week, in fact. I know it seems as though there hasn't been a lot of news, but we've had a bit of fun on the YouTubes in the last 72 hours. So we've actually done a couple of videos, one in particular on the lore of the Shapers and a little bit of lore crafting as well. So if that does tickle your fancy, then please jump on the YouTubes, have a look at that. And we've also done a few updates on images and a few things we'll mention in today's cast. But I suspect we might go a little short today. Anyway, look, we should probably get on with the show. Now, the conversations this week have been more around updates, the usual fare, of course, and there's been some good conversations online, on the Twitters, on Reddits, and in the Discord, and of course that's at discord.anthemuniverse.com. But one of the first queries that I guess started to come out there was in regards to flying, and it has actually been confirmed this week that there is no levels in Anthem where you'd be required to fly for a extended period of time. So I guess that answers the idea that there is no flying only levels. And I guess levels is probably not the best word to use in this context, but there's no missions where you'll be flying only in the sky. So that obviously alludes to the fact that you will have waterfalls, your packs will overheat, and you will have to land at some point. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's an interesting point. I suppose they could have had some very gamey exercises, and you know what I mean by gamey? I mean as in, kind of like a 90s adventure. If anyone played Earthworm Jim way back in the day on SNES and Genesis or Mega Drive, you might recall there was a mission in Earthworm Jim where you're on a rocket, and it's a very, it's on rails, and you're just basically dodging asteroids. It's not advanced, but I'm not saying it's going to be the same thing, but that kind of made me think about, if you were really going to just have a jetpack only level or a flight only level, I'm not sure how that would pan out, and it would kind of negate the whole point of the action. If you constantly flying, unless there was some story or lore related reason, it really probably wouldn't make much sense anyway. So, not a big surprise, but something important. The second piece of the day I wanted to talk to was the screenshots. Now, of course, Anthem Friday has just passed, which is awesome as always. And in the Anthem Friday this week, the guys in particular, Ben Irving, dropped a couple of screenshots and a few shots from the studio, as well as Chris Anderson dropped some images in our Discord over the Friday-Saturday period. So we're able to get some insights into two screenshots. If you haven't checked the video on that, we did a separate video outside of this that you're welcome to take a look at on the YouTubes. You can check that out separately, and it does actually look through the images that have been shared. We've got one from the Ranger, we've got one in particular from a long shot that looks out of a cavern, one in a nice beautiful glorious sunlight or sunset, and a couple of shots from the studios which basically confirmed one key point. And the biggest takeaway from that video was the elements of Storm. We actually saw Storm's ultimate, and in that case we actually were able to see the thunder, the flame, and the frozen symbols that were actually appearing as a part of the ultimate, alluding to the point that you'd either be able to select which type of ultimate, say like a variant of the ultimate element that you're using for Storm's ultimate, or perhaps there's a mixture. Maybe you can combine two, like some sort of bizarre concoction. Not sure if that's the case, maybe it's a bit far-fetched, but it was exciting to see. That was probably the biggest thing that came out of that element. Now, elsewhere, we have more confirmation from Mark, of course, on the Twitter sphere, which talked to pilot level. Now, the curiosity was, we've spoken a lot about pilot level, and we need to confirm a few points. My good friend Angex in our Discord has brought this up as well many times, but in previous videos and trailers, we have seen levels. We have seen a level 30 team playing with I think it was level 30 Colossus times 2, a level 30 Ranger, and a level 1 Storm. Now, of course, it's been made blatantly clear that it's actually impossible to have a level 1 storm. And if you know what I mean by that, you start with the ranger. So it's physically impossible for you to be starting at level 1 with the storm. You would eventually acquire that over time. So it is something to think about in terms of the pilot levels. And the main point going back to that was that because we don't really have full context, that has only been a guide so far. So the level 30 and the level 1 storm that we've seen has just been for the gameplay provision, the gameplay demonstrations. Those numbers are not specific and not determined to what will happen in the final release of the game. So we need to be careful before we obviously jump to big assumptions and conclusions. And that could not be emphasized any more than with this information from Mark. He mentioned quite specifically here, we aren't discussing this at this time. I would suggest that the relevancy of a level cap requires a lot of additional context. Now, that's an important and very important tweet, because it says the key word there's relevancy. So he's saying that I would suggest that the relevancy of a level cap requires an additional context. So that either gives us one point. Either A, the level cap is extremely low. I doubt that. But it's possible. Maybe it's 20, maybe it's 30. Maybe it is what we've been sort of working towards in the conversation so far. Maybe they don't want to throw a number out there to set a bar of expectations. I remember, we are gamers, we can be fickle and an amazing bunch of people. Sometimes we can be as gamers, I know. And maybe they don't want to throw a number out there just yet. They don't want to really see or get reactions, as Mark mentions, without additional context. Lastly, there may be I'm not going to say it's unlimited, but maybe a very large, stretched example of what would be required as the pilot levels up. Now, what that looks like, I'm not sure myself. Could it be infinite? Could it be something that enables and ensures that players are driven to keep coming back, to keep acquiring, and to keep enjoying as their level increases? Or is it just 2030, and they don't really want to commit to a number yet until there's that true context? I'm sure we'll hear more. For now, sadly, that's all we've got on that, so I'm not going to spend any longer on that for now, but it is important to think about. Elsewhere, of course, we heard that the settings from your demo will not be carried over to the full game, which I'm not sure what importance it bears, but anyway, we know that your progress won't come across from the demo, of course, and now we have confirmation that your settings won't as well. That's okay. Here or there. Convenience perhaps was the, reason behind that question, but not too fast with that myself. Elsewhere in the world of Anthem, we've had questions about gear, and this is where it started to get very, very interesting. Now, I should add, this is only in the last, probably the last 24 hours that this has been spoken about on Twitter. So it is very interesting and very important when we talk about gear. Now, here's the rundown. So as we know it right now, in addition to your 2 guns, you will have 3 gear slots. I don't think that's new. Most of us knew that so far. So you're going to have 2 guns and 3 gear slots. Now, as to the content of those gear slots, those have been discussed previously. The third one has been discussed sometimes and then has been confused with other things. In short, what I'm about to tell you, I still think there is confusion, and I want to explore briefly what it looks like now, what I think it looks like, and perhaps what we can expect from the guys coming up. So the example that was discussed here was that, as I mentioned, you get 2 guns and 3 gear slots. Now, if you consider, say, a Colossus variant for a moment. Now, you might recall in the gameplay trailer, there was a Flamer Colossus. Now, the point of this is that is not necessarily a subtype. It's not a sub-role in terms of the game, but what it is a differently geared Colossus. So in this case, let's say, for example, you could have the multi-mortar on your shoulder. So you have a shoulder mount, which is one of your gear slots, as the multi-mortar. You could have a second gear slot, which is your arm, as a flamethrower. So, for example, if you're into arsony and fire's your thing, knock your socks out, bro, because you can do it. You can have a flamethrower on your arm and a multi-flame or a mortar or flame mortar on your shoulder and go for it. Now, here's the cool part. The best part of that conversation is that you will be able to, technically, with the right setup, set up your own combo. Now, I'm I'm sure we talked about this a few months ago. I just can't remember, and I couldn't find the source. But it is nice to get that reconfirmation that we will indeed be able to self-combo. I love that idea. It seems so strange, doesn't it? Like combo, usually we're so familiar with it being very team-centric. But in this case, nope. Knock your socks out. It is something cool. You can have a play, and it is your own combo. Now, of course, from this, remember, we can create our own loadouts. So for each gear piece, we'll have its own dedicated slot to put it in, right? So let's say, for example, say a railgun and a flamer wouldn't be able to go together, because you'd have a rail variant on the arm and the flamer. So you'd be using the same slot for those types of weapons. Another example would be, say, the multi-mortar and the flame mortar. You couldn't combine those because both of those are shoulder mount weapons, and they would use the shoulder mount gear slot. However, you could have those other variants that I mentioned earlier. So, say a flamethrower on your arm and a flame mortar on your shoulder, or maybe a multi-mortar for explosive action on your shoulder mixed with a flamethrower on your arm. Either way, just re-summarizing, I guess, everything we've just spoken about. Again, we've got 2 guns that we know we will be holding for the javelins and 3 gear slots. So to this point, we know that one of those gear slots will be the shoulder mount, and one of those will be the arm mount. Pretty straightforward. So the question beckons, what is the 3rd gear slot? Well, to this point, we've always assumed that the 3rd gear slot was the ultimate. However, Mark recently replied in the last 12 hours to a question, and he said, and I quote, "Okay, technically ultimate and melee are also gear slots, but these won't be changeable at launch." What? I'm so confused. Okay, so basically there is 2 additional gear slots that won't be able to be changed in and out, where you're just, they're javelin centric. So for example, obviously your ultimate for Storm is the Storm ultimate, your melee for Storm is the Storm melee, obviously. However, he's also using the word gear slot for those as well. So this might be where the confusion's coming from. And look, don't hold it to heart. I don't think it's a major drama, but it is something to bear in mind for now. There is still that somewhat confusion in the community, but that line actually would imply, if he's saying that technically ultimate and melee are also slots, that the 3rd is indeed not for the ultimate. So we're back to the point now where we've got 2 slots for weapons, 3 gear slots, 1 for arm, 1 for shoulder, and the 3rd one is not ultimate as we once thought. So I don't know, there might be some other abilities there we're talking about. Of course, there could be crowd control elements. There might be something else that will be part of that. We'll find out, no doubt, very soon as time progresses. Anyway, moving on to some other points. There are no cross saves at launch, and I think we know that. We've mentioned that many AnthemCasts at this point, so I'm not going to dive into that any further. One thing for you guys that do like to invert, and I am one of those, you guys know, you're out there, right? You're the guys that, as soon as we hit start, the first thing we do is we go to settings, we go to invert Y, we make sure that axis Y is inverted. I'm with you guys. It's the right way, especially in a scenario where you're going to be flying. So it's very good to be assured that flight controls can be inverted for your javelins. It's a win for we invert people. Stand up, ladies and gentlemen. You are right. I won't, starting an argument. I won't go there any further. Last but not least is a peculiar tweet, something important, critical, and very, very informative for the world of Anthem. And it is a message from Isaac Ruddle, and it goes something like this. Says 23 Carol 3/22. Thank you, Isaac Ruddle. Your message was well received, and Mark's response was, "You got me there." Big week. You got to summarize it with something like that, I tell you. But look, that's probably the most prominent things that I want to talk about. It's kind of a bit difficult. I'm very used to having conversations and being able to prompt or interview people. So hopefully today's AnthemCast has been refreshing, and tolerable. So thank you for listening this week. Look, again, I've got a shout out to all the people in the community that have been working in the Discord, creating content, making conversations. There's some great stuff out there right now in terms of Anthem. We've got our good friends Dantier in the communities posting some great stuff all the time. Got William over at Your Anthem. You've got Anthem Insider, and you've got just people just getting really excited about what's happening. So it's a real pleasure to be part of all of these conversations. We'll be looking at more interviews and conversations and probably some collaborations over the coming weeks and months, no doubt, as we draw closer to Anthem and hear more from the studio at BioWare. That said, I think it's time we wrap this puppy up. So I should say thank you for joining us. Of course, you can check us out at Anthem Universe on Twitter. You can check us out in the Discord, which was discord.anthemuniverse.com. Of course, please subscribe to YouTube. Listen to the podcasts. If you are into podcasts and iTunes and all those wonderful things, do so. And importantly, engage in conversations across the Anthem universe. As I mentioned earlier, if you can check out our lore video, we'll be doing more of those in the coming week and a bit, I suspect. More to come in terms of the lore crafting of the Shapers and the extended world that we know in Anthem. We'll wrap it there. I am at Ogaz from Anthem Universe. And Javelins, freelancers, we will see you next over the war.